Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. Hello, David Gouthro. Discover fresh perspectives, and in this episode, we are going to get some different perspectives from Lana Starchuck. Welcome, Lana.
Hi, David. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you. And I never really talk about on these how I got to meet the guests. And in this particular case, we were at a conference in Halifax. And I was eavesdropping because the conversation at my table is really boring, I guess. And I heard at the next table someone talking to another person about about what they did. And I heard skydiving. And then I heard 1,000. I wasn't supposed to be hearing this, but I thought, okay, it got my curiosity up because remember probably 40 years ago at a silent auction, I bought an opportunity to skydive, and I never used that. And I thought, would have went. I was quite excited about the time. Then I just stopped. So I would like to meet a person who's done this over 1,000 times, and there you were.
There I was. So you just let that jump go to waste? You never used it?
No, well, I never used it. I looked at it as I made a contribution to the not-for-profit association that was having this dinner. So I felt good about my contribution and not so great about my I don't know why I put it off. I could probably go back, do some regression analysis or something like that and get some therapy, but nevertheless, I didn't do it. So I'm curious, having done 1,000 jumps, I imagine that, your major job, the reason we're talking is not because you teach skydiving, but perhaps use it as an entry point into some conversations that normal flat-footed landlubbers like me might be able to apply. Is that fair?
That is fair, David. Yeah, I use the analogy and the metaphor, not even a metaphor, it's just the truth and the work that goes into formation skydiving. Because after all this time, this is what I do now. There is different disciplines within the sport, and I do belly to earth. I'm, let's say, like a conventional skydiver,
Okay.
which means I do belly to earth in the boxman position. If you can picture yourself, if you're on the ground and you got your belly on the ground and your arms are up and your legs are, your knees are bent,
Okay.
boxman, and we make shapes in the sky.
So is that what you meant? Like you said, formation. What is that?
So formation can be anywhere from 2 people to 20 to 25 to 200. There's a world record of 400 skydivers
Wow.
in
Wow.
Thailand, I think 2006. I'm not entirely sure on that. But and you don't start there. Obviously, you start lower, but four-way is a competitive discipline in the sport. Four-way and eight-way for people, four-person teams and eight-person teams are quite popular in competitions that are they can be regional, national, international. There's world competitions where you have in those types of those disciplines, you have set shapes that correspond to letters and numbers that you need
Wow.
to make with these people. So is and this is these are grown adults, professional people with jobs and lives and families, grandkids that are going up in planes and making shapes in the sky by gripping each other's arms and legs.
So I'm gonna go down a rat hole for just a moment, then come back, which is like I'm trying to picture 400 people in the air at approximately pretty close to the same altitude. How do you do that? Like I just imagine the complexity. It just
Well, and therein lies the crux of my talk to some extent. So the biggest I've done was 250. This was a big deal last summer, August 2025, outside of Chicago in a town called Ottawa, Illinois. Skydive Chicago. It was in the plan. So the short answer of how is it done? Lots of planning. Nothing is left to chance. There is no willy-nilly. This was a super elite group of skydivers where you had to qualify. There
Mm,
was you had to have at least at minimum done a 100-way formation, and you needed to have a positive recommendation from one of the 11 coaches on that team. That the organization behind that event was phenomenal. When you think of project management,
mhm.
like, we could it you think of trying to get 250 people to do something on the ground,
Anything, yeah.
to do anything at all, let alone in the sky, 11 airplanes, almost 50 countries represented, bunch of different languages, bunch of different cultures, non-verbally communicating in the sky. So, like, the preparation is there's a lot to it.
I'm just overwhelmed as you say, trying to get people on the ground to do something. I sometimes do workshops with 20 people and can't get them to even clap their hands at the same time. So how long have you been skydiving?
Almost, I'm going on 20 years. In a couple of years, it'll be almost 20 years.
And what got you started? I'm trying to get some of the backstory so when we get into so how do you apply this in organization? So why did you start? What got you hooked on it?
It's sort of well, I did this one skydive. I did a low altitude jump back in the '90s just because I was going to theater school at the time in Montreal, and I had a friend who had a 18-year-old son who wanted to do this, and it was August, and it was my birthday month, and I thought, "Oh, she didn't wanna have anything to do with it." So and he couldn't drive. I'm like, "I'll take him. I'll do a jump. Why not?" So did it, did the day-long training in French, not even my first language. Good enough, right? Did it, great jump, checked it off, and I thought, "Well, that's done." 11 years later, after my hiatus, I had moved to Toronto and was going through my first divorce at the time, and I had a friend who was a skydiver, and she said, "Oh, just come to the drop zone for the weekend, get out of town," and I was like, "Oh, that's good, yes, I'll do that." Stay in her trailer on site. And we're driving out there, and I thought this is in Niagara region of Ontario on Lake Erie, beautiful area of our country. And she said, oh, no, we're driving along. And I said, you know what? Maybe I'll do a jump. And she
Hmm,
smacked me on the shoulder. She said, yes, of course you should jump. Coming out of a marriage, getting, new perspectives, what could happen. Like I didn't know what was going on. So I was
just a
like,
different type of jump.
very different jump. So tandem skydive, 13,000 feet, whole new perspective. Whole that minute of free fall, then I was hooked.
Hmm. And so having done and how many have you done now approximately?
Close to 1,100.
Wow. So, what are some of the like if skydiving was a metaphor for life or something like that? What are some lessons, some things that people could take out of your experience that could actually apply to them in their somewhat more mundane existence? Speaking to myself here when I say that, Lana.
Oh, hardly mundane, David, but I would say, the big things with the formation is this I've developed this, top 10 list of guiding principles that are the same for the formation skydiving that they are in your workplace or your family or your community, and they're just principles that we all have, things like failure, making mistakes, and recovering. Awareness. Awareness is huge in skydiving, literally, it will save your life, but on the ground, it makes you adaptive and responsive to the more aware you are, your surroundings, your environment, who you're talking to, who's on your team, what language you're using, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Trust. Trusting yourself, trusting the process, trusting other people on the team. Confidence. Confidence in your ability, not so much as from an ego-driven place, but confidence to be at ease amidst change,
Mm,
because skydiving teaches us also patience,
mm.
perseverance. You need to be consistent. Kids, the foundations of big way skydiving are consistency and repetition. Simply put, there's obviously more to it than that, but those are some of the top principles.
So I've got fear, awareness, trust, Confidence, so you have that sense of being at ease.
Failure, failure.
Failure.
Yeah. Fear
Okay.
too.
Did
Fear
fear come in as well?
for sure, because it
Okay.
is fear of the unknown, which is a lot, which is fair with anything. And I encourage people to think of fear of the unknown as potential,
Ah.
opportunity, possibility, right? You don't know. You don't know what you don't know because people tell me, "Oh, they could never go skydiving. They're afraid of it." And I said, "Well, what are you afraid of?" And some people say, some guy I was talking to, he said, "Well, dying." His name was John, and I said, "Well, John, I don't want to burst your bubble, but we're all headed that way, right? Whether you're skydiving or not, you got more chance. Actually, fun fact, you have a better chance of dying by falling out of bed if you're over 50. So be careful out there, but of choking and of falling furniture. Shelves, book when you're reaching for bookshelves, I did the research on this. You have more chance of those things killing you versus something happening in a tandem skydive.
Wow. Okay, well, I'm almost encouraged to do that. I think I can, be looking out for the others as well. I'll look around for furniture. So one of the ones was trust. I want to focus on that just a sec because I know in Patrick Lencioni's model around team, the base of the triangle is trust. That's so very important. And I wonder about what is the trust in when you're skydiving. So what are the different elements that you have to trust? And then let's take that down into organizations.
Good question. So trust primarily is yourself. You really need to be uh and at this level when I'm talking like something like the 250 or a jump like that or even like a competitive four-way team, trust that you know what you're doing. Trust that you have arrived at a certain point in your skydiving journey that you will know what to do. Also, trust others, the other
Hmm.
people on your team. Now, this is easier said than done because that trust needs to be earned. It doesn't
Hmm.
happen overnight. This takes time, which is why if it's broken, it can be very challenging to rebuild, either on the sky or on the ground in your workplace or in a boardroom. So that's trusting yourself, trusting others, trusting the process.
The process meaning
Well, in skydiving, it's the plan.
okay.
It's n again, everybody has a plan. Nothing is left to chance. Trusting that everybody will remember the spot they're supposed to go to, that they will, um I guess that's what I mean by process, because you have a plan, and that can translate into the workplace as well. You're working on a project, you don't just, like, start in the middle somewhere, you have a plan, and you have goals, and you have a structure. Hopefully, you do, otherwise things generally go haywire, which also happens in the sky, and we literally call that a zoo dive, because if you have no plan, you go out and it's a zoo. Which can be super fun and, you can just do whatever you want, but if you do that in the workplace or with your team on the ground, sometimes the zoo is not so fun because you don't accomplish very much at the end.
So here's my mind's going in a bunch of different directions on this, still around trust. And uh, sometimes I hear people say, "Just trust me," right? And if it hasn't been earned, that's really hard to do. But I also think about blind trust. I mean, things can go wrong. So it's like, how do you balance trust and personal responsibility? Like, with your parachute, do you pack your own parachute? Do you let someone else do that? Do you count that? Think the same things about people that go scuba diving, and who's made sure that you've got the right mixture of gases if you're going down extra deep and things like that. So, how do you balance that trust in other people, but also maintaining your sense of responsibility without having, in an organizational sense, peering over someone's shoulder because you're not sure if they're going to do what they have to do? I realize that there's a lot packed into that.
It's a leap of faith, isn't it? At some point, to be pun intended, but you are trusting the process, you are trusting yourself, you are trusting those other people. knowing that, of course, things can go wrong, right?
Mhm.
Failure, obstacles, challenges, conflicts, we don't need to seek them out. They're coming. I talk about change a lot, and it's like we don't, as humans, generally do well with change. We like things to stay the way they are. We want things to not be so rocky and difficult and challenging. But this is where confidence comes in. It's sort of tied into the trust, where if you can be confident amidst change, you're going to have an easier time with that change when something unexpected happens, because it is going to come, and it's going to come in your workplace. I can't tell you when or how. It's going to come in the community, your family, your job, your life, like your health. Expect the unexpected. So in skydiving, we are prepared. We are prepared as we can be, right? We go over emergency procedures constantly, over and over and over again. You check your handles, you check everything, your pins, your straps on the ground, on the way to the airplane, in the airplane, on the way to altitude, one more time before you exit. You're constantly checking these things. It sounds like overkill. It's not. You can never be too prepared, and we say this sometimes on the ground as well, right?
Well, and it sounds like, pilots go through the checklist. Doesn't matter how many times they've flown, it's your standard operating procedure, whatever. So I wanted to dive in. So you talked about dive. I have to be careful I don't overuse that term, but, um, you pack a reserve chute. So, I'm trying to think of what's the equivalent, and we'll take the times of change, where you know things are gonna change, not sure exactly how they might change. What is the metaphorical equivalent, if there is one, of your reserve chute?
The reserve Just to clarify, I don't pack my reserve chute because 'cause I'm not a rigger.
No,
Fair
but you
enough.
have one. Right,
Yeah. Well, the blunt metaphor, it's plan B.
okay.
That's what it that because if something goes wrong with the main parachute, you cut it away and you pull your reserve. And so if we're talking about a project in a work situation on a team, if something's not working with the main plan, you can cut it away and go to plan B.
I think the timing is important because I imagine that you don't start to think about, "Should I have a reserve chute?" when you've jumped out of the plane. You you wanna have that before you actually head up. And so the so
Certainly.
right.
Certainly, yes.
So
That's
in
the
an
time to think,
organization
"Oh,
darn, I knew there's something I should have thought about. It's always those things we don't think about that get us. When in organizational change, the time to think about a plan B is not when plan A fails. It's
no."
too late.
And I would add to that too, you can have a malfunction with your main canopy, and we are trained to try and sort it out, try and fix it.
Hmm.
If you can fix it, if you have the altitude, if you have the time, and if you have the capacity, the awareness, you should be able to, classic word, that you should be able to, well, depending on the malfunction, because there's a whole bunch of things that can go wrong, that you can expect the unexpected, but some of them, like there's a bag lock, there's line twists, there's tension knots, things like this, closed up end cell. These are technical things in skydiving, but line twists, for example,
Mhm.
most obvious. Normally, you open your parachute, it inflates, the lines go up nice and straight. Sometimes they get twisted up. It could be your body position, if you were unstable when you deployed, or if it was packed a certain way, those lines can twist, and then you end up in a spin, and it's not square, steerable, and stable. That's what you look for in a main parachute. So if it's not, you can attempt, again, if you have the altitude, if you have the time and you have the capacity to try and sort out those line twists. Sometimes you can fix it. Sometimes it's just you kick in the opposite direction and they untwist and then you're good. You're golden, square, steerable, stable, A-okay. Sometimes they go faster and it becomes unstable and then it's time to quit.
Uh,
You
well, when you say quit, what do you mean by that?
cut away.
Oh,
Cut
okay.
away. If you
Okay.
cannot land that parachute,
Okay.
put it away and you pull your reserve. That's how it goes. And there's also something called the hard deck,
Hmm.
which is these are terms I should probably bring into my speeches because they're great. Hard deck is your personal decision altitude when you will not try and sort that issue, whatever is going on with your parachute. That's your
S-
hard deck.
So organizationally, it's almost like a strongly adhere to set of values. We will not compromise these at this point, but it's your limits, your own internal limit.
Yeah, if the project is really going sideways and it's unfixable, if you can't get it back to something that is what you intended in the first place. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Cut it
So
away.
just for those that are listening, you won't be able to see what Lana was doing, but when she was showing how you could be untangling these ropes, I was having these little chills go up and down my spine, just trying to picture that. It's like so the need to remain to have that confidence that you talked about, the need to be aware, to have presence, and be able to make decisions in the moment that aren't based on panic, that are made of some kind of process or trained response.
Those are your assets, right? We have these things of course, panic and freaking out are options that are available to us.
Not recommended.
Not usually, either in the sky or on the ground, but if you can stay calm when that project is going sideways and things are not going as planned, if you are expecting the unexpected, all of a sudden, or maybe over time, maybe something just really wasn't planned out well and it's not going well, but stay calm, stay focused, don't panic, and fix it. Fix it. We are more resilient than we would like to admit, probably.
This reminds me of some conversations I've had with some of my colleagues on stoicism. And so being clear what you can do something about, can't do things based on the past. And if I worry about the future, it takes me out of the present, which is the only moment where I have control. And right then I want to be 100% present with what's going on. Is that something that people could get trained to do, Lana?
S
Like to be
skydiving?
well, no, that I hope that's the case. No, but to be present, because I think that's a transferable skill, right?
Yes, and in fact, my word of the year is present,
Ah,
and, I've chosen that on purpose, to be intentional and to be intentional for somebody who has a fairly overactive brain and can get a bit scattered, to be present. It is mindfulness.
mhm,
If anybody does any kind of mindfulness training, that's what it is. I'm doing a Zen course right now, and that is what it is. We really only have this moment right here, right now. We're always scrambling. We want to be there. If we only do this, we can get there. We can get there. Well, you know what? There is no there.
mhm.
Get there, it's here.
Right,
Get,
right.
Zen Buddhist about it. But that's why also I love skydiving. You do not have a choice but to be present. If you're not present, it's probably not the sport for you.
Right, yeah. Well, I guess it's kinda like in a way climbing as well, mountain climbing and things like that. You have to be present and not looking down, looking in front of you and for the next hold, but being there. I love this.
Yeah.
Lana, I understand that, rumor has it that you're working on a book.
I am. I
Could
am.
could you tell us a little bit? I won't ask you to reveal a title just yet. We'll keep people in anticipation, but maybe if you could just say a little bit about what it's about so people can look forward to it.
Yeah, I'm happy. Well, I've shared the title. It's a working title, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be the title. And because I have been talking about it for a couple of years now, and I will be publishing it in 2026, so people
Great.
can look out for it. And it's called "What Happens When Your Parachute Doesn't Open and Other Successes," with the word failures crossed out, because I am a huge proponent of failure. I fancy myself somewhat of an expert because I have screwed up fair amount of times so far in this life, and so much so I'm writing a book about it to share these experiences, and hopefully people can make perhaps some better life choices than I did. but also learn from them because to me, failure is is not, doesn't have the negative connotation that we have been conditioned to, understand it to be. Failure to me is growth. It's learning. It's data. It's information. And from that learning, it it's really not how you fail, it's how you recover and the steps that you take to mitigate future failure.
One of the conversations that I often have with my clients around failure is not encourage you to have your employees go out and fail, but not have a fear of failure keeping them from doing something new and innovating and being creative. That it's a natural consequence of doing something, anything practically, for the first time. Like we learn to walk by continually falling. We don't learn to walk, when we only stand up. But as you say, not to fear it, but to embrace it. I remember one of my clients many, many years ago. They had a project manager that when their projects didn't work, he would have what he termed a near miss lunch to get people together to talk about, what worked and what didn't work, and it was celebrating anything. No, as I know other organizations, what when something goes wrong, what do they have? Just think of this terminology. They have a post-mortem, and it takes on the feeling that something died, and rather than encouraging people to step up and learn from it, they hide their failures so they're not gonna have to be accountable for it and blamed and all that other sort of thing, and the way we hold failure, is just, almost a direct relationship to the amount of growth that we take on.
Yeah, it's so unfair that I love that near miss lunch because, well, and I'm using it's not a new term, but if you fail, so what? I mean, really, you can you can learn from it and, hopefully it's not as catastrophic where there's some major repercussions, but chances are you're gonna learn from it. You might break something, you might lose something, whatever context it's in. But I like to remind people about 4 words.
Oh, I was so glad you're gonna talk about these. That's why I was leaning forward. I'm waiting for them. I'm waiting for them.
4 little words. When a project goes wrong, when something doesn't work, when things don't really go the way you want them to go, I want you to think about these 4 words. But did you die?
Love it as a starting place for the next conversation. But I love that.
Because and this is I'm attributing this to the Zen course I'm taking now. Sometimes he uses this kind of language that is unexpected, blunt, direct to pierce that veil of normalcy, this idea we have about failure. Yeah, okay, so we failed, right? Something went wrong. It's not what we wanted. It's not the outcome we wanted. But did we die? But did you die? If not, you got another chance. You can keep going. Another meditation teacher says if you're breathing, you got more right with you than is wrong with you. So that's my gift to your listeners. Four little
There's um let's see, what would you do? Oh, Janice Stanfield is one of my favorite human beings. She's also a great singer-songwriter. And one of her songs, one of the phrases is, "What would you do if you could not fail?" And so, if some of the listeners are driving or whatever they're doing, there's, if they could be thinking about something that a little concern about failures is keeping them from taking that action. Do you have any sort of 2 or 3 things they could just think about that would help move them over that and to actually take that first step into the unknown or the unpredictable?
There is a 3-point quick checklist you can do if there's something you're avoiding, something you're stalling, something you're stuck on, something you're afraid of. Number 1, just ask yourself, what's the real risk?
Mm.
What is which could be the fear. What's the real fear here? What is it? It's probably fear of the unknown because you're avoiding it, you haven't done it, you don't know what's gonna happen. Number 2, what if you did it anyway?
Hmm.
What might the learning be? What might the potential outcome? Where would your growth be? What could happen? And then number 3, what if it works? What
Great.
if? What if it works? What if it all works out?
Great questions. It occurs to me that change doesn't have to be painful, but it's often uncomfortable. And I think sometimes the greatest impediment for us learning and growing is an underlying value of the need to be comfortable. And sometimes we use our fear as a reason for not doing something when really it's a whole lot easier just to stay comfortable and understand that that limits growth. So, and the potential for change of any sort.
Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is going to be your biggest ally, especially now in our unprecedented times of uncertainty, change, these conflicts, these challenges, these obstacles, they're coming, right? The change is coming. So the sooner you can get comfortable being uncomfortable, navigating this whole uncertain future, the better off you're going to be.
Well, Lana, thank you so much for being my guest here today, and exploring how skydiving can offer some wonderful lessons that we can apply down here on the ground. And I'll make sure that in the program notes we'll have the name of your book, a rough idea when it's coming out, so people can get a hold of it. So once again, thank you so very much. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I probably have another 143 questions, but perhaps we can save that for another time.
We'll do that. Thanks for having me, David. A real pleasure.
So come on back next week, folks. We're going to have someone different, equally great. Well, maybe not equal. No, equally great as Lana with some different perspectives. So come on back then. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.